Welcome to Larry's Library, and welcome back to another edition of the Sunday Scan. This is where I'm doing a read-through of some single-issue comics, and I'm back on the Godzilla title, and I'm talking about the original Marvel Godzilla from the late 70s. And today I'm doing this issue right here. This is Godzilla number 17. This is from 1978. And once again, it's featuring another fantastic cover. And this time, we actually have both penciler and inker credit on the cover. I love to see that. And this one is by Herb Trimpe and inked by the awesome Bob Layton. And I can clearly see both of their names right here on the cover. Now, this doesn't shout Bob Layton as much as like a typical Iron Man cover would. Mainly because there's not all that much metal in this shot. And that's the key to understanding and to pick it up on a Bob Layton inked piece, is to look for the shiny metal, because nobody makes metal more shiny than Bob Layton. That's why he's such a great Iron Man artist. But looking at this one, if you look at the can, looks like a, I don't know, some kind of canned good can opened up there on the lower right of the page of the cover here, and it has a little bit of that Bob Layton sheen to it. It is pretty shiny. You can also tell a little bit, I think, from, and this is partly due to the colors, which of course we don't know who the colorist is here, but on the little Godzilla figure in the foreground, the sunlight hitting his side and the way that's lit is pretty classy, pretty spectacular. It gives it a real 3D look, I think. And if you've seen the episode before the last, when I did issue 16, toward the end of that, I was really looking forward to this one, because this is Godzilla when he could shrink. And here's your dead giveaway on the cover here, because this Godzilla looks like he's about maybe 15, 18 inches here. I don't know at this point, but we'll get into that. So opening this one up, you got another fantastic opening page. Not quite as steep of a perspective shot as some of the last ones, but still pretty great. And I just love it. It's Godzilla, and he is grazing. It even says, the little narration box in pink there says he grazes. And he's just plucking himself off a big old piece of a tree. And I would assume that Godzilla is an omnivore, because I cannot imagine that he doesn't eat meat as well. But here, he is grazing on some trees. And of course, once again, we have Doug Minch writing and Herb Trimpe doing awesome pencils with a really good fitting inker here, Dan Green. Great inker, and he fits well with Herb Trimpe's pencils, in my view. So, yeah, and this one's called Of Lizards Great and Small. Now, getting into this, and I'll show a scan of this page too, because it's fantastic. On page 2 here, we see Godzilla is very tired because he hasn't slept in like 2 days because of all the events of the last issue with the cattle rustling and all that jazz. People, the stampede and people coming after him. So he's very tired, and you get a really nice shot of Godzilla yawning here. And it's just great. It really, very effective panel work here. And he yawns and lays down and takes him a nap. So that's pretty cool. And then we get into a little bit here with the SHIELD helicarrier. Dum Dum Dugan comes down and questions the ranchers and the cowboys about what happened, because he's trying to figure out which direction Godzilla went. Now, you wouldn't think it'd be that hard to figure out which direction Godzilla is going. I mean, it's kind of big. But anyway, that's the plot here. So he interviews those guys. And then we get into a little bit of a soap opera type deal here, where Rob Tagaguchi is still depressed about Red Ronin having his head severed. You know, the giant robot that he bonded with and was the pilot of. And they try to assure him that SHIELD and Stark, it's a joint venture between Stark Industries and SHIELD, this giant robot, and that they are working on putting him back together again. So they reassure him of that. And then they're all sitting around the table on the helicarrier, and they're trying to figure out what the hell they're going to do about this Godzilla situation. Because now there's a turning point in, I guess, a couple issues ago, I believe, where Dum Dum Dugan no longer wants to kill Godzilla because Godzilla has saved his life at least twice now. And so he's now convinced that Godzilla isn't a complete menace. I mean, he's a menace because he's so huge. Everywhere he goes, he's stepping on stuff, you know, and he's getting into brawls with all kinds of creatures and whatnot. But he seems to be more or less on humanity's side more than he isn't. But he's still a problem. So they don't know what they're going to do about it. And someone makes a comment, you know, if he wasn't just so blasted big. And then Dugan's like, oh, I got it. You know, and he slams his fist down. So that's when they formulate this plot, this idea, to appeal to Hank Pym of the Avengers, and Henry Pym, that is, and get him to give them some of his Pym particles, his gas, his shrinking gas, but of a sufficient strength and quantity to shrink Godzilla down to a more manageable size. So, of course, Henry Pym agrees, gives them the gas, tells them no guarantees, because he doesn't know what that stuff's going to do to something of that size. I mean, sure, Henry Pym as Giant Man Ant-Man, he goes up and down in size, but he starts out as a normal-sized human. So he's saying, well, we don't know what's going to happen when you try to do this to something that big that's naturally that size, you know. But they decide, you know, it's their best bet. So the helicarrier gets out looking for him, and they find him. And there's a great shot here. I'll show a scan of this page as well, where Godzilla is sleeping, and it's kind of adorable. It really is. He's just, you know, he's doing this and sleeping on the side of a hill. Pretty great. Well, that hill's probably more like a mountain, but yeah. So they talk Rob Tagaguchi, because he has a rapport with Godzilla, into luring him awake and getting his face up near the carrier's deck where they have aligned this device to fire the gas at him, right at his face. And I'll show a scan of that. It's a pretty cool page. And they get him with the gas, but it doesn't affect him immediately. There's a time delay as he's shrinking slowly. And he gets a hold of Dum Dum Dugan right in his hand there. That's pretty cool. I'll show that page too. But then eventually the gas does kick in. He starts shrinking while he's got Dum Dum in his claws, literally. And it's a pretty cool scene here where briefly Godzilla is the size of a human. More or less the size of a raptor, you know. And Dum Dum gets him by the tail, but he quickly gets away from him, still shrinking. Now by the end of this issue, after some running around desperately looking in weeds, they get a hold of him. He bites a couple of them, and they get him in a net, what looks like a giant butterfly net almost. They grab him up in that, and that's how this issue ends. Now, that sequence at the end there where they're getting him in the net, the little small Godzilla, what immediately struck me here is, what about his flame breath? What about his radioactive fire breath? Seems like Doug Minch forgot about that here. I mean, maybe it'll get addressed in the next issue, but we'll see in 2 weeks. But, yeah, because I'm thinking he could have just lit that net right up with the radioactive breath, even if it's coming from a little jaw. Still a fire, you know. Still radioactive flames. But anyway, so we'll see what happens with that. I hope you like taking a quick look at this issue. And come back for more. Tomorrow is Monday. I'll have more of my regular content. Not a single issue comic book profile, but something else. So come back for that if you like. And come back for these if you like seeing these single issue profiles. And thanks for watching. Give me a thumbs up and hit the subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you next time.